level up a few thousand degrees with the Lavahot podcast and host Joseph Connell Jr. You'll hear from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, from tech startup CEOs and marketing professionals to authors, investors, and sales trainers. This show will be packed with information to help you level up in life or business, taking you from on fire up to lava hot. Get ready to burn this down.
Hello and welcome to the Lavahot podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Connell. Today, I have an individual that comes from my hometown in Ocean City, Maryland, a guy that I actually went to high school with. I've known him for quite some time, 20 plus years now. And the reason why I actually wanted to bring on Mr. Caine Sheppard is because over the last 20 years, I've seen him chase after his dreams in a number of different fashions, from acting, modeling, to getting into real estate in a very competitive market of New York. And in more recent years has gone after this dream of becoming a music producer, producing his own music. And what has been really impressive to see, he's had hits that have gone all across the globe, including charting #1 in the UK. And for that matter, I just wanted to bring him on, talk to him about, one, chasing your dreams, but then how you take that dream and turn it into a business, and then have other aspects of your business built around that particular dream. Caine, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For those that are tuning into this episode, fun story. This is actually the second interview because I'm a knucklehead who forgot to hit the record button on the first interview. So I have a little bit of an insight, but I'm going to try to keep it fresh because now I have a new set of questions that I want to ask him anyway. So I'm just going to run with there, but I do want to start back from the beginning. You know, where I met Caine was in high school. Right out of high school, from what I've gathered, you went right into modeling and acting. I want to start there and then kind of build our way to where you are now in the music game.
Absolutely. Yeah. So shortly after high school, I left Ocean City. I was about 18 years old. I didn't move directly to New York City. I did move to Naples, Florida. I did not like it there at all. So I moved back to Ocean City and then decided I would take, the jump over to New York City to try to, pursue my dreams. And modeling was great. It never really kicked off for me as much as I would like it to have. I did get a few jobs like Saks Fifth Avenue, a few bookings here and there, but in reality, it just wasn't really popping. So I started acting, and I met a producer's, son. So they kind of took me under their wing to help me out a little bit. Did a bunch of national commercials. I was, a recurring character on the Big C on Showtime, Morgan. It was great, but I just felt like I was never getting to where I actually truly wanted to be as a person.
Yeah.
And I felt like nobody would give me the opportunity to actually have like a bigger role.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So then from there, you got into real estate. I know real estate is something that runs in the blood. Being an Ocean City native, I know the Sheppard Realty has been a prominent name in the marketplace for quite some time. From what I gather, your parents run that company or have ran that company for what, the last 20 plus years?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. About 20 years. And before that, my grandfather had Caine Real Estate, which was, that's real old school, like really old school. But yeah, so it's always been in my blood, and it's always something that I truly did enjoy, and I wanted to learn more about.
Yeah. The
real estate class was hard, but but I passed second time. And then I started with rentals, and rentals did well. And then they started giving me listings, and listings did well.
Yeah.
And at this whole time, I loved it, but then I hated it because I felt like you just waste your time. Literally, they don't care about you. It's all about them. And that was one big thing that kind of like, I just didn't like that. I thought it was really odd that I would get a phone call at 2 a.m. from somebody in another country asking me about a listing in New York City.
Right.
Like, you don't know there's a time difference? Like, why would you be calling me this late? But in reality, I did really well in it. I loved it. And it's just when the music kind of, the music picked up and there was no need for real estate anymore, even though I am still licensed with the Corcoran Group in New York City and have my partner doing 95% of the work.
Yep. So Corcoran, that's Barbara, correct?
Barbara Corcoran's old company. She started that company. Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. So you start off modeling, then you progress into acting, and then you find your home with the family roots back into real estate. And when does the music thing start to kick in? Was that in more recent years, or was that over a progression over time?
I was DJing for a long time. Like, I was club promoting in New York City for a little while too. Shh, don't tell anybody. But anyway, I was DJing at the same time. If they couldn't find a DJ, they would have me DJ. I wasn't very good back then, but I was DJing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Production started about 6 years, maybe 7 years ago almost. And that was more, I was terrible in the beginning. Like, it was really bad. It was like putting all these sounds together and then trying to find like a melody, and like, it was just really difficult. But as you get better, you're going to get better watching YouTube videos, being around friends. And then during COVID, it took off. Like, I mean, in New York City, they didn't allow us to leave. We had to stay inside. It was a serious lockdown. They took it very serious. So I took advantage of that. I was like, all right, well, I mean, I might as well get good now because I can't do anything else.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me, there's a saying that I've always loved. The key to success is to double your rate of failure. And
that's what
it is.
When
you talk about the early stages of your music career, as you start, it's like anything else. You're going to suck at it. When I first started this podcast, I watched that first episode. Oh man, I'm freaking terrible. Like, I think I'll, hopefully I will get rid of some of the ums. They're still there a little bit, but the whole thing was, how do I try to come up with better questions? How do I try to engage the guests better? How do I provoke more thought from them? And then I do research. I mean, I think it's this back and forth of learn knowledge, which, you study or you learn. For real estate, you got to study the book, you got to learn it, and then you apply it. So you're back and forth between this learn knowledge, activity knowledge, learn knowledge, activity knowledge, and you just keep going. And then one day you hope that you will get to a point where you're worthy of being modeled, meaning now you can teach what you're doing. I would imagine after 7 years of being able to create music out of nowhere, out of thin air, to be able to create it, you could probably teach people how to create music. And for me, on the marketing side, 10 years later, I could absolutely teach people how to get into the marketing game. When I first got into it, just even sales in general, it was terrible.
Yep.
God awful. But you got to go back and forth. You got to learn knowledge, activity knowledge, and eventually you start to cultivate the skill set in order to be able to either advance your career or, just get ultimately good at it, whether it's going to be a hobby or it's going to be a true passion that you're going to cultivate into an income producing activity. Either way, you got to go through the paces of that learning in order to get to the spot that, that you're clearly at. I mean, if you're charting number one, so I do want to hit on that. So you go through COVID, you see the opportunity in COVID, which is we can't go anywhere anyway. I may as
everybody was listening.
Yep.
Everybody was listening.
May as well capitalize on the fact that everybody's either listening to music, streaming, what have you. And I can really start to hone in the skills that will ultimately propel this career. Because if you can't go anywhere, you might as well.
It was literally a hobby. It was no career. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that I ever thought would ever go anywhere. I thought it would be just a hobby still to this day, but a lot has changed.
Yeah. So how do you go from how does that step happen? Because I would imagine nowadays there's, millions of people that are tuning into TikTok and Instagram reels and so on and so forth. And they see all these videos all the time of, creating a secondary income or a side income, or just on the hobby side of things. How do you get that progression where you go from this is a hobby to, okay, this is what I'm doing full time?
Well, first of all, I would say you have to have a decent product. So remember, marketing is everything, but you have to have a good product at the same time, because without a good product, you're marketing something nobody wants. And
Yep.
remember, everybody wants what everybody wants, and nobody wants what nobody wants. It's just a proven fact, and that's just the way it is. Same thing in real estate. But I would just say, I guess it would kind of, I don't know how to say it. It just kind of happened. You know what I mean? Like, my goal was 1,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Like, that was my goal from
Yep.
the beginning. I couldn't get it, bro. It took me like months and months and months. And then I realized that the more songs you have, the more listeners you're going to have.
Right.
So it's just it's a proven fact, but you need marketing, like I was saying. So that was the big step, and where I went from here to like here. It was marketing, PR, social media ads. I mean, just throwing money at everyone. Like, literally, that's what it took.
Right. Yeah. So, going back to it, I mean, there's a couple of things that sound like it's what really got you to this position. One, you weren't afraid to share what you were making. Is the first step. I think more often
After
than not,
3 years. After 3 years. Nobody saw 3 years before. No.
Hey, fair enough. So, and I think that happens. I think a lot of people have a lot of recorded potential that they have just never released, meaning they had an idea for a video, for a song, and they put it on video, and then they just never released it because we get in our head. We think, Uncle John's not going to like this video. Aunt Patty's going to say this. Or my friend from high school from 20 years ago might have this opinion. And it happens. We all do it, from the biggest creators in the world to, the person that's just hitting record for the first time. I think it happens where we just get paralyzed by like this what if thought,
Absolutely.
And what I like about what you're telling me is, one, you kept stacking music to be able to release, and you got to a point where you were comfortable enough with releasing it, and then you started multiplying because you had this goal that you set, which is another key to it. You have to have a goal. Without any sort of goal, you're just aimlessly just throwing stuff out there. But you start producing and cranking out music so that you can get to the views, because now it's okay, how do I continue to give, and I'll hit this goal at some point, and then it, from the way it appears, is eventually something kicked off, and that started the progression, that started the momentum, which then blossomed from there. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. So, just like real estate, music is a numbers game. If you put out 100 tracks, I promise there's going to be a few hits in there. It's just the way it works, because a lot of my music I put out is not a hit, but then there's some that is a hit, and I think it's always a hit when I'm like, this is the one. Never happens that way. Like, it just does. It's in your brain that it's a hit, and then you release it, and sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't. And when they don't, you kind of just like say, okay, I need the next one. You know what I mean? Like, in the beginning, it was hard. There was a lot of people declining my records. Like, I use Submit Hub, which is like a music platform where you can submit to different curators and that have different Spotify playlists or different PR or whatever it may be. And it's like $1 submission, and I just go and crank everybody. You know what I mean? If they're accepting my genre, and a lot of times they declined, and a lot of times they approved. And then eventually, as you kept getting better, and the music was getting better, because remember, every day I'm getting better.
Right.
I'm not. That it's just a proven fact. You're learning things every day. It's a computer. You're using sounds. You're hearing sounds you've never heard before. You know what I mean? But 90% of my songs are piano based. So.
Yep. Very cool. So you initially just start as a hobby. Then you say, you know what? I want to take this a little bit more seriously. I want to set this goal. I want to get to 1,000 streams. It was
1,000 monthly listeners.
Yep.
Yeah.
1,000 monthly listeners.
Yep.
And then you go to the spot where you chart #1 in the UK. So I want to talk about
pretty
that.
much what I'll tell you what happened. So pretty much I kept putting a song out. In the beginning, I put a song out about once every 3 or 4 months. So nobody's really listening, and you can't listen to the same song for 4 months. I mean, do you? I don't. It's very rare to do that.
I'm a rare breed. I could listen to the same song for 20 years. I'm still listening to the 2003 playlist.
I love that, actually. I do love old school music as well. So, but in reality, really what got me to that next level was USA Dance Radio.
Yeah.
Once I was on USA dance radio stations, that's when the Shazams, that's when the Instagram followers, that's when a lot of stuff was happening. But with the UK, this is because Vassie, who I had the song with, she was the vocalist. She's based in Australia, so she wanted to like do a promo over there. And we did get 18. We were number 18 on the USA Dance Radio charts. I was hoping we would get a little bit, more leverage, but there was a few stations that just didn't break for us. So we didn't get on those two stations that we really needed to get that number one in the US.
Gotcha. So I want to transition to, you go to the Hoppy, you go to cranking out music, charting number one. And I want to talk about how this starts cultivating into a business, and then how you start building other pieces around the main flow. So traditionally speaking, I think that's how most businesses should operate, meaning they have one primary source of income. And let's just say in individuals, if you're in sales or marketing or what have you, I think that it's always important. And this is why I've learned is that you have your primary source of income, but then you start to build these connecting pieces to it. So it's all part of the same wheel, in the marketing game. I could at some point make this podcast, leverage it to try to bring in some sort of income. I could then sell ad space. I mean, there's a lot of things that connect to my primary flow, which is the marketing side of me. And for you, I would imagine that you've built this wheel around you, meaning you've got the music, which actually brings in an income. And then I want to talk about the pieces that connect to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that connect with the income. Like I said, PR, I was paying like a lot of money, like close to like $10,000 a month in the beginning, for PR, like just getting all these articles, because remember, nobody wants to write about somebody that's nobody. I was nobody. Like literally, I was just a guy on the street that I thought I had decent music. But so I spent a lot of money doing that. So the numbers started coming really well. And now they write all the articles for free. I don't pay for PR. I don't pay for anything anymore. But in the beginning, it took a lot of, capital to get where I am, because in reality, I am a label. So I have to be a label. Like if I don't want to give my money to these other people that want to sign me, I literally have to be the one that forks out the money and hope that you get it back. Remember that, because everything's a risk. But I do, ghost produce for a lot of DJs that are very busy, huge DJs that don't have time. So you make like a few $1,000s a track off of that. Just doing anything I possibly can. I have a radio show that generates income. I DJ that generates income. I mean, there's a lot of things that are generating income that I didn't think would, like ghost production. Who would have thought about that? But somebody needs it. The thing is, like when you're flying throughout, all over the world. Yeah. How you can't sit in the studio for 2 weeks and make a song. It's just, you can't.
Right. Absolutely. I want to transition to the radio show. I meant to put that into my initial intro, but tell us about the radio show, because that's a weekly deal for you, right?
It is. I actually have a few on a bunch of different stations. My regular one that's weekly is on Energy 101.9, and that's in San Jose, California. It's my radio show is called Good Times Only, and it's the 35th episode this week. So I'm stoked. I'm going to have a special guest on the 40th episode, like a bigger artist than I am, to kind of like, just boost the show a little bit.
Sure.
But I do have another show in Belgium that's also weekly, and that's on Star FM. I do them on C89.5, which is in Seattle. I do it on Revolution 93.5, which is in Miami. I mean, I've done them on a lot of stations, but those are my two big ones, the Energy 101 and Star FM.
Yeah, very cool. And tell me about the show. Is it all music based, or is there, a certain aspect of it that's interviews?
No, it's all music based. I don't really go over each song. I pretty much just have my inserts in there. So I just throw some inserts in. I make an hour-long mix, so it's just consistently, everything's mixed. It's almost like you're at a nightclub, but you're in the car. And the genres that I usually put in would be like dance pop, like what I'm making. tech house, which is kind of like club music. And then sometimes I'll put in some progressive house as well.
Very cool. So we started this music career with a goal of 1,000 monthly listeners. What type of goal? I'm just curious, like what you've seen over the past 2 or 3 years since things have really started to gain momentum. I'm kind of curious, like what type of level of monthly listeners you're up to now, and what's the next goal? What's the next tier for you?
I have about 500,000 monthly listeners now on Spotify.
Wow, very cool. Yeah,
which is insane. It's honestly, I feel so grateful, and for everybody that's listening to my music, I can't thank them enough. Like it means more than anything in the world to me, literally. But my next goal, I don't know if it would be about stream numbers. I think it would be a number one in the US. That would be that's what my goal is. I'm doing a radio promo at the moment for my track that I just dropped. So we'll see where it turns, but a few stations have picked it up, but I don't know if we're going to get a number one on it. So we'll see. But that is my next goal. That's like something that's realistic. After getting the number one in the UK, it's not unrealistic. Is it going to happen this year? Maybe. It might not. It might be next year, but I will never give up until it happens. Like I will never give up.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the song that you just released. What's it called?
Yeah, it's called
that might want to check that out.
Yeah, it's called Never Together. It's about my previous relationship, and just that two people weren't compatible, and as much as you wanted it to be. But yeah, check it out. I mean, it's a fire record. It's a dance pop record. It's more on the pop side.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys will like it.
Cool. From there, I want to pivot into some of the live event type of stuff that you have going on, where people can typically find you. I know from the previous interview, it sounded like most of the shows that you tend to be involved in or go to are in bigger metropolitan areas like Miami, New York.
Correct.
I think Chicago, you have an event that's coming up.
Seattle,
as well.
Yep. And Seattle, I have one. They just they booked me yesterday. So it's called Supernova in Seattle. I'm stoked for that one. It's going to be insane.
Very cool. I feel like I've heard of that show before.
You might have. They have a lot of huge, big acts that are there, like David Guetta and Tiesto. Like they're really big. I mean, it's a huge venue, like huge. It's probably about 5,000 people, maybe 6,000 people. So that's big for a nightclub.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I just did a show in Baltimore with Always Sunny, and he's actually headlining, or he's on the main stage at Moonrise. So I'm going to Moonrise with him, and I'm actually bringing my dad. Yeah, I'm stoked for that. So
very cool.
He loves the music more than I do. I know that sounds crazy, but he'll be like, "You don't know that song?" I'm like, "No, I'm busy making my own." Like I don't know other people's music very well,
Right.
But yeah, so that's pretty much what I have going. I do have a show in Chicago. I do have a show in Seattle. And then I'll be heading back to Miami in October from Ocean City because I'm here for the summer. Trying to stay cool. A little hot over there in Miami.
Yeah, you definitely got to beat the heat. I make a couple of trips down there periodically throughout the year. If you see the 10X behind me, that's down in Miami market. That's Grant Cardone's deal.
Yeah.
He has his headquarters right in that area.
Yeah, I saw you were down there last year, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been,
or was it this year?
A little bit this year, a little bit last year. Yeah, I went down to Miami like 2 or 3 times towards the end of the year, and I think twice so far this year. I have like 3 more trips that I'm planning for the duration of this year. That's
amazing.
Yeah. It's I'm part of his accelerator program where you go into his basically his headquarters, and his team teach you about marketing, sales, scaling a business, like a whole deal. I've also been through his real estate program for real estate investing. Guy has so much to offer. It's just every time I leave there, it's
trust me, I'm with you on that. He's next level. Like literally, his books are insane.
Yep. And I give them credit because I had talked about starting a podcast for quite some time. And then I went down there for their marketing workshop, and his team basically said, look, you want to start a podcast. Podcast is an amazing way for you to really start pushing out content, connecting with other people that are kind of in your space, being able to bring on guests that can bring value. And I like to do it, no matter what the mix is, traditionally speaking, this is a business podcast, but I think that there's always something that everybody can offer to that, whether it's, a person that's an author, a financial expert, or somebody that's cracked into the music industry, which is highly competitive. I can't imagine how many people are just in the space that you're in.
Many.
That you're competing for the same streams, the same ears, the same listens. But the main thing from what I gathered is it's being consistent enough and continuing to go through it and making the music over and over and over and over. And that's how I believe every person that's been successful at anything had to do that thing over and over. It wasn't
consistency is key, bro. Consistency is key in any industry. Doesn't matter what it is.
Absolutely.
Even like real estate, like when the person doesn't want to sell, I keep begging them. They sell. They eventually sell. Like, it's just consistency is key. Like it is.
Absolutely. Well, hey, as we round to the end of this episode, I want to, I always like to give each guest an opportunity to share with the listeners where they can go if they want to start streaming the music, listening to music, if they want to connect, even if it's on the real estate side, if they're looking in the New York market and thinking, hey, you know what, I need a guy, I don't know a realtor in that market. Where should everybody go to try to connect with you and, for any angle?
I mean, you could always go to my personal Facebook at Caine Sheppard. You can go to my Instagram, GT_OFICE, GTOFICE. Also on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon, iHeartRadio, wherever you want to listen, you can listen. YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever. And I'm everywhere. And then you can also go to my website. It's www.gtoficemusic.com. And I have some songs and stuff there that, so if they don't have any of those streaming platforms, you can still listen directly from my site.
Very cool. Well, Caine, I appreciate you taking the time, not once, but twice for us to do this interview. Luckily, my camera was turned on this time. The record was running, so I was able to get all that fire condensed into this 30-minute episode. And again, I appreciate you taking the time coming on and just sharing what has taken a unfortunate situation of COVID, the lockdown, seizing that opportunity, and then going full-fledged into setting goals and really starting to produce not just the music, but the dream that you're chasing. So again, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, brother, and hope to see you this summer.
Yes, sir.
You've been listening to the Lavahot Podcast with Joseph Connell Jr. Do you want to level up your business in 2022? Then visit us at golavahot.com for a free marketing analysis.